Have you thought about what kind of a legacy you will leave behind? Have you considered what kind of a mark you're going to leave behind in the world? What will be your moment marked in time? Hello, my name is K.A Bloch, and I am a poet and the award winning author of 4 books that consist of poetry and prose. And I also have a website at thepracticalpoet.com. And in each of my 4 books, I do a little bit of storytelling through poetry, not only through the poem itself, but also through the prose that precedes each poem. I always tell a little bit of the backstory on the poem, how it came to be, what was my motivation, what was my inspiration, why did I write it. And then each week on my channel, I am featuring one of those poems. And just depending on what's kind of going on in the world, what is going on, during that time, maybe just my random thoughts, maybe I just feel like talking about a particular poem that week. And then I will, give a little bit of the synopsis, the overview, kind of my random thoughts, and then get into the poetry reading. And I'm happy that you're here to join me. You can find all the copies of my poems that I feature on my blog, again, at thepracticalpoet.com/blog. And then you can also find links to my books under the books tab, and it gives a little description and then a link to Amazon or Barnes and Noble to purchase my books. So this week I chose to feature a poem from my latest book called Sow Seeds of Wisdom. And this poem is called A Moment Marked in Time. And the reason I chose to feature this poem this week is because, as you're probably aware, and based on the date on this video, it is the holiday season. And so many people are going to be pulling out their phones and marking, all of these moments in time throughout the holiday season. The Christmas morning with the little kids and the family, Christmas dinner, New Year's Eve, all of the festivities of the holiday season. And they will look back, everybody will look back at those photos in future years and remember, the Christmas of 2024, going into the 2025 season with Happy New Year. But even more importantly, future generations are going to see that video and they're going to see how we live, just like we see pictures of ourselves as kids. And in my life, the 70s Christmas tree and the 70s TV in the background, and that scene, and it gives me kind of a remembrance of how things were. And future generations are going to see that. So I thought this was a good time to feature this poem. And I had kind of the little random thought about, what if the camera had never been invented? I mean, we wouldn't know, right? We would not know that it hadn't been invented. We wouldn't miss it. We wouldn't know what we were missing. But what we would be missing was, all of the photos, like I mentioned, of us in our youth, our first baby pictures, our first Christmas, us walking, even going further back, our parents. What did our parents look like as children? Or our parents on their wedding day, our grandparents on their wedding day, and them as little kids, and all of those things. And even on a more worldly view, think about all of the things that were captured on film, 9/11, and, the shuttle Challenger explosion, and all of those things captured on film, Normandy, fighting, Pearl Harbor, that kind of thing. All of those moments of our lives marked in time. And imagine if we didn't have the camera. Imagine if those moments didn't exist. What we wouldn't, again, know what we were missing, but our lives are enriched for them. And at some point in the future, somebody maybe not even born yet is going to look back at our photographs, and they're going to see us. And so we need to think about, what kind of a mark are we leaving behind, and what kind of an impact are we leaving on the world? So I chose to feature this poem this week, and a little bit of the backstory on how this poem even came to be. In 2018, I had the pleasure of visiting Munich, Germany, which I absolutely loved. And while I was there, I took a tour of the Dachau concentration camp. And if you've ever been there, the feelings, the heaviness all around as you walk through the camp, and the gas chambers and the crematorium and everything there. And left a big impact. And it left a big impact not only on me, but on everybody. On the train ride there, everybody was taking selfies of themselves on the train. And, and then on the way back, it was silence. Nobody was speaking. So it hit everybody in a way. But what impacted me the most were the photographs. And when you walk in, they have all these display cases. And on one side of the display case, you would see the men before they entered the camp, just living their lives. They were jolly and happy. A lot of them had cigars hanging out of their mouths and, maybe a little bit of a big belly. And you can tell that they were enjoying life. They were with their family. They were smiling and happy. And then you walk around to the other side of the display, and there is, presumably the same men after they had been in the camp. And it is a completely different scene. I mean, they are emaciated and the gleam in their eye is gone. The life is gone out of them. And it's just such a huge comparison. And it just really makes an impact on what happened there in that camp. And then even something that made an impact on me was the photos of the men that worked at the camp. And you would see photographs of them out with their families, just having a picnic, enjoying life. And their families knew that they worked at the camp, but they had no idea that maybe, daddy operated the gas chamber, or Uncle Jimmy, worked in the crematorium, or what have you. They probably thought that they just worked in accounting or something like that. So it was just interesting to see all these photos. It really left a big mark on me. A couple years after that, I had the opportunity to visit our Holocaust Museum here in our city, and it's an amazing place. But again, when you walk in, the first thing that hit me was just the wall of photographs, and it just goes on and on and on of all the photos. And as you're walking along, you see the people just living their lives, and they're happy and fulfilled, and life is good. And then you see what happens to them in future pictures down the wall. There was one photo that really, I can still visualize it. It was a young woman, blonde woman, and she's sitting there kind of on like a rock, and she's hugging her children close to her. I think there was 2 children, and she's hugging them. And in the background is men like being executed. You could see their backs were to the gunfire, and it was just moments before their death, and they were going to fall right into a mass grave that had been dug. And this woman is sitting there trying to protect her children from this horror that's going on behind her, and probably not even understanding or knowing what her own fate was going to be, or what her children's fate was going to be. And she was just, she kind of looked up at the camera, and she gave just a slight grin in that camera. And I thought, what strength in that horrible situation to be able to find a smile for the camera. And it was a moment marked in time, and it was a moment that just really made a big impact on me. And so I chose to write about that. And then I started again thinking about all of the different moments marked in time, like I mentioned earlier, the 9/11, or things that the big world events that have happened. But it doesn't even need to be a big world event. It could just be a child's birthday party, your first horseback ride, all of those little moments that make up our lives. And that's something too that someday somebody in the future is going to look back on, and they're going to see, the kind of clothes we wore, how our hair was, fax machines now. They're going to think, what the heck was that all about? We kind of think that now too about fax machines, right? One of those funny things in our lives that it's just a part of our past, but we have those things captured on film, and thankfully, and someday somebody's going to look back, and they're going to see how we lived, and they're going to see our Christmases that people are capturing this year, and they're going to see all those moments marked in time. When I was trying to get up the courage, and it did take a lot of courage to start my own YouTube channel and put myself out there, put my voice and my face and my poems out there into the world, I was watching a lot of videos of people encouraging people to start up their channel, especially those of us that are over 40 and 50. There's just a ton of those videos out there saying, just hit record, just get yourself out there. And one of the reasons that somebody gave, and I think it was Rob, the Maritimer, had given the reason of it provides a legacy for you. It kind of builds a legacy, because if you, if you do like Snapchat or Reels, those disappear within a short amount of time. But YouTube is forever. This video will be around for as long as YouTube is around. And that gives future generations an opportunity to look back at your videos and to see your real voice and your face and how you interacted. And that's something really special. You don't even have to make the channel public. If you just want to make like a private channel for your children or your grandchildren, letters to your children, or if you're a good cook and you have a recipe book and you want to just start filming yourself making some of these classic recipes. I think about my mom and her Thanksgiving stuffing was legendary in my family. And before she passed away a couple years prior, my sister-in-law actually went up there with a notepad and sat on a chair next to her for a day and watched my mom step by step make her stuffing. Well, imagine if they had filmed that and could put it on YouTube, and instead of looking down at your notes, you can just watch the video. And now I've taken over making the family stuffing. And there are times I have questions where I'm like, wait, how did I do this? Or how did my mom do this? Imagine if I could just pull up a YouTube video and see that. And so again, it does create a legacy that you can leave behind. Maybe you are a good sewer or a crocheter. Is that the right word? Or a knitter, or something like that, or a woodworker. Maybe you are into ceramics or something like that, and you can put that on film. And again, you don't have to make it public. You can keep it private, but it gives your family something to look back on and to kind of see your legacy. And we want people to look back at us in the future years. And I'm already talking like we're dead. And I don't mean for it to come off like that, but we will be someday, right? It's just the reality of it. And we want people to look back at us and be proud of us and proud of what we accomplished in this world and proud of what we left behind. And so for me, I don't have any children, so I don't know who these future people that I'm talking about that are going to be watching my video, but maybe my nieces and nephews' children in the future will see my video, and I want them to be proud of the person that I was and what I left behind in this world. And so for me, my moment marked in time is going to be my poems and my books. And, eventually these videos will be left behind. And I hope that when people watch them, that they wish that they had known me, or that they wished, that they're proud of maybe the impact that I had on this world. And that's all we can do, right? Is just try to be a good person and try to leave a good legacy behind. So without further ado, this is a bit of a longer poem. And so I thank you for sticking with me so far. It gets into quite a lot of different things that I've already kind of covered, but in poetry form, a little bit of storytelling. So I hope that you'll stick with me. If you choose not to, and you want to just read the poem and the backstory itself, you can head on over to my blog for the printed copy of A Moment Marked in Time. It is on my blog under the practicalpoet.com/blog, and just look for A Moment Marked in Time. And there you could read the story of how the poem came to be, and then along with the poem itself. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get into the reading of the poem. Like I mentioned, it is a bit longer. I am going to take a sip of tea first, soothe my voice, put on my glasses, and we will get into this reading of A Moment Marked in Time. Here I am with this bookmark again that never seems to appropriately mark my page. I need to do something about that. But again, from So Seeds of Wisdom. A Moment Marked in Time. A man stares at a photograph taken long ago. The image is in black and white, so imperfections do not show. But if one looks close enough, the eyes reveal a story of battles won and lost, along with all the guts and glory. He looks at the plaque upon the wall and searches for a name. He doesn't know the person, but his heart sinks just the same. The brilliant smile, the handsome face portrays the mood of that one day. The man in the photo unaware of hardships to come his way. A moment marked in time with a photo in a frame, a plaque to tell his story so no one forgets his name. A few photos down, a young mother clutches her babies tight. She smiles as the camera clicks, but her eyes reveal a fright. A look of false bravado on that young mother's face. A moment marked in time with a smile locked in place. The plaque next to the picture tells us of their fate. The man staring at the photograph begins to feel irate by this moment marked in time with a photo in a frame of a mother with her babies, but no listing of a name. So many stories frozen by a moment locked in time before lives changed forever as the victim of a crime. I am grateful for these photographs, for they do help to teach of the battles fought in Normandy by soldiers on the beach, or the smiles on the firemen before the dreaded call, and the horror on the faces as they watched the towers fall. A runner at the starting line, determination on his face, marked forever in time as he begins to run the race. Not knowing what was planned or how the day would unfold, the chaos captured in the crowd as they felt the bombs explode. A moment marked in time to tell our history and to give a glimpse into the past of how things used to be. Photos of cities in their youth, pedestrians all abuzz, gives us a glance back in time, a view of how life was. The victories and the struggles, the laughter and the sorrow, the innocence of not knowing that life could change tomorrow. A beaming groom in black tuxedo staring at his bride, a mother's first glimpse of her baby, her face lit up with pride. A child on her birthday clapping hands before her cake, all captured in these photographs as memories they make. Soldiers in their bunker as they prepared for battle, a cowboy in the Wild West sitting proudly in the saddle, a boy on graduation day tossing cap into the air. For each one of these moments, the camera's eye was there. Thank goodness for the camera's eye and for those who snapped the scene to capture life's big moments and the small ones in between. When the camera clicked the scene, they may not have realized that by being captured in its lens, they've been immortalized. Whether a grin from ear to ear or a teardrop in the eye, no matter what we're feeling, the camera does not lie. A moment marked in time and the emotions that it brings can evoke such joy and happiness or pull at our heartstrings. And someday in the future, maybe someone yet unborn will get a glimpse into our lives and stare with emotions torn as they gaze into our faces and try to analyze the pain, the joy, the sorrow reflected in our eyes. They may wonder how our life was and what was going through our mind as the moment was locked into place for future generations to find. And that was the poetry reading of A Moment Marked in Time from Sow Seeds of Wisdom. I thank you very much for sticking with me through this poetry reading. Like I mentioned, a little bit of a longer poem there, but it does cover a lot of history, including, all of the moments of our lives, the big moments, the big worldly events that happen, and the small ones, giving birth, the first glimpse of a mother and her baby, a groom seeing his bride coming down the aisle, all of those moments that are captured in time by this little invention called the camera. So this poem, I guess, gives a little bit of homage to that camera, to that invention. I can't imagine our lives without having that camera. And again, it helps to give us a legacy. It helps to tell our story. It helps to leave a little bit behind. And not only in the photographs, but like I said, what will your moment in time be? How will you make your legacy? Some of us, some people podcast, some are authors, some are have children and raise them to be good and, productive humans. And that's a huge accomplishment as well. So it's all different ways that we can make our mark on the world. Pardon me. That was a long one. I've been talking for a while. Another sip of tea here. So there's lots of different ways that we can make our mark on the world. I think the point that I really want to leave behind with this poem is we want to be proud of the legacy that we're leaving. We want our moment marked in time to be one that future generations can look back at and kind of say, hey, that this looks like he or she was a really cool person, and I wish that I had known them. And that would be the best gift. So for me, like I mentioned, it's my books, my poems, now these videos, and they may not pull at somebody's heartstrings the way that the towers falling on 9/11 did, or a mother staring at her brand new baby. But for me, what I leave behind, that's my moment marked in time. So I wonder what yours is. I'd love to hear in the comments. So thank you so much for sticking with me during this poetry reading, this little bit of storytelling for the reading of A Moment Marked in Time. I'd like to hear your comments on what you thought of the poem, what you thought of the video, either here on YouTube, or if you want to head over to my blog for the printed copy and take a read through and leave me a comment, I would love that. If you want to be notified, I am doing a weekly poetry reading. So if you want to hear about future poetry readings coming up, you can hit the like and subscribe button and you'll be notified every time I post a weekly video. And with that, this is probably my last video that I'm going to post before the Christmas season. So if you celebrate the holiday, I'm wishing you a very Merry Christmas, and we'll chat again before the new year. So take care. Thanks so much for sticking with me.